Again, for those just now joining us, thank you for joining the webinar. We're going to wait a few minutes for more folks to join, and then we'll get started. All right, I still see people joining the webinar. So again, thank you for joining. We're just letting a few more folks join, and then we'll get started in just a minute or two. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us tonight for a presentation of proposals for the site located at 1769 West Pershing Road. My name is Nolan Zaroff. I'm the lead planner for the Southwest region at the Department of Planning and Development. Before we get started, I do want to let everyone know that interpretation is available both in Spanish and Mandarin. Traducción está disponible. En la barra de Zoom, presiona el botón interpretation. And I put that information in the chat as well. So I'll give folks just a minute to join one of the two rooms if they need to. I'll also mention at this point that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be, the city will be posting it online by the end of this week. So anyone who's not able to join us this evening will still be able to go and watch the presentation. Or if you missed something, you can go back and watch it again. Please feel free to use the Q&A function. During the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. You can use the Q&A function to type in a question. You're also welcome to raise your hand, and we'll call on you in the order that you raised your hand if you want to ask a question live. And we'll also be recording all of the questions and answers during this session, so we'll be able to publish those as well after the webinar. We have a full agenda tonight. I want to take just a few minutes to walk you through the request for proposal process, why we've done a request for proposal, what we're hoping to achieve at this site, and what some of the next steps are. We'll then turn it over to the developer teams. We have 3 developer teams with us this evening who have submitted proposals for 1769 West Pershing Road. And we want to give each of them an opportunity to present their proposal to you and ask any questions that you might have. So each team will be provided 10 minutes for a presentation, and then we'll have 10 minutes afterwards for questions and answers. Any questions that we don't get to in those 10 minutes, we'll be able to send back to the developer teams and get answers for you afterwards. And then we'll close out the presentation tonight with next steps and how you can continue to be involved going forward. So we have a few goals for this meeting this evening. The first one, again, is for you to meet the respondent teams who have responded to a city request for proposal for 1769 West Pershing Road. We want this to be an opportunity for you to learn more about those proposals that were submitted, ask any questions, provide feedback or thoughts that you might have. And then finally, sorry, I've already preempted myself. The third thing is to ask questions about the proposal so you have more information. At the end, we'll be launching an online survey where you can provide more thoughts on what you like about the proposals, what you don't like, what's important to you. And those survey responses will help the city in determining what proposal is finally selected for the site. And so this is the project site. We're looking at the primary site is 1769 West Pershing Road. That is site A on the image you see here. It's a nearly 600,000 square foot manufacturing building. And the city is also offering as an option site B, which is another city-owned lot directly to the east of the primary project site. And what is a request for proposals and why a request for proposals? Really, this is the city expressing interest in proposals from development teams to redevelop city-owned property. And the goal is really to generate momentum for this opportunity. But we really want to go beyond traditional land sales that the city does to make sure that we're facilitating design excellence in whatever redevelopment proposal is selected for the site, and then also that we're encouraging community benefit. We also want to make sure that we're engaging the community in the process, make sure that your voices are heard, and that what's important to the community helps shape whatever proposal is selected for the site. And then finally, you know, these are most successful when they encourage local partnerships, when local businesses, local organizations get involved in the process. So this RFP is really meant to encourage that as well. Some of the things that we incorporated into the request for proposals were a lot of the goals that the community has articulated in past plans and studies. So the Department of Planning and Development looked at the 2021 McKinley Park Neighborhood Plan that the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning developed. We also looked at the C40 Students Competition that was conducted in 2021 as well, that engaged 14 student groups around the world to vision for the future of the Central Manufacturing District and these buildings. And then most recently, the McKinley Park Development Council worked with the University of Illinois, Chicago to develop a vision for 35th Street. That plan also articulated some ideas for the Central Manufacturing District. And so these goals and priorities that have been articulated by the community in the past have been incorporated into this request for proposals. The city has also incorporated some redevelopment scenarios that we think both help support city and community priorities, but also allow for some flexibility for development teams. I won't go into detail on these, but this information is available in the official request for proposals, which is publicly available. So you're welcome to go take a look at these scenarios afterwards. And again, here's a timeline of the process. This is a lot of information. I won't go into it in detail, but the main points are that the city released this request for proposal in July of last year. We gave development teams roughly 3 months to come up with ideas for how to redevelop the site. Those responses were due back in October. And since then, we've been in the process of evaluating those proposals. So in October, there were 5 proposals that the city received. through an initial evaluation committee comprised of city representatives as well as 3 community representatives. The evaluation committee kind of picked the top 3 out of those 5, and those are the 3 teams that are with us tonight. And so this is another key step in the evaluation process, having the community learn more about these proposals, ask questions, and then provide your thoughts through the survey. And that will also be incorporated into a final determination on what the successful team is. And so once that happens, we'll go into negotiation with that development team. But we also expect that team, the selected team, to continue community engagement throughout the process. And so with that, and actually ahead of schedule, so maybe we can be a little more generous with time during these 3 teams, I'll hand it over to the first group, IBT Group LLC.
Hi, good evening. I'm Gary Pachuki, and I'm here with one of my partners, Patrick Carrata, and we're here to introduce what we think is really a transformational project for 1769 West Pershing. Slide. Next one. First of all, I want to introduce our team. We've got a really sophisticated team with over 100 years of experience in Chicago. IBT Group, Epstein Architects, Arco Murray Construction, Inglewood Construction, and our WBE and MBE partners, AP Monarch, DVHMS, and Site Design. Next slide. Our breadth of experience ranges from some amazing projects like the terminal in Humboldt Park to include retail, housing, mixed use, all the way to the McKinley Park Community Gardens. So we have a really broad breadth of experience for what we're attempting here, which really will be transformational. Next slide. So what we're proposing is an incredible mixed-use project that will be impactful to the entire neighborhood. We're going to activate the building with 120 housing units, both affordable and market 24 and 96. We're going to provide over 200,000 square feet of flex lab, creative office, and innovation space. And we're going to separate that by creating a 3/4 acre park in the center of the building, running trails on top, and then we're going to add about 50,000 square feet of neighborhood-focused retail. Our next slide. So in round numbers, based on where we are, this is how the project lays out. So we think that there will be an opportunity for some CPACE funding. We've already actually received a preliminary term sheet from Forbright. We know we're eligible for some historic tax credits for about 20%. We think there's a Illinois historic tax credit. We've already worked with our consultants, Ryan Group, on this. There's some potential grants that are federal grants that are available. We think that there will be debt, and that debt number will include some TIF dollars. If we want to use CPACE funding because we want to be mindful of having a very sustainable project, and in order to facilitate the CPACE funding, we'll need a material TIF to help execute this, supplemented by a smaller loan, and then cash equity that we'll bring to the table. The overall project is estimated to be at this stage about $120 million. So at this point, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn over to Patrick and get a little more granular on what our design plans are.
All right, thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. Next. I'd like to walk you through the design. And by the way, I'm the architecture design director at Epstein. We're a local Chicago-based architecture interior design firm. And we're excited to show you guys this design. We feel like this is something exciting for the community. And it's a different spin on how to reactivate the site and also what to do with the existing buildings. So to your left is the existing warehouse building at 1769 West Pershing Road. We're proposing this to be a mixed use development. So we'd like to incorporate 120 apartment units, of which some will be family friendly or family sized. Additional units will be affordable. Also, we're planning to include office space, about 200,000 square feet, and that could be anything from your traditional office space to maker space or larger format open floor plates, so more flexible oriented office space. And we plan to have the two program elements side by side. So to your left would be the office space, then at the center, a green courtyard, and then to the right, the apartment units. And the reason why we introduced the green courtyard is to split the floor plate because it's quite a sizable floor plate, and we wanted to introduce daylight for both program elements. Also, a small portion of this program will also be retail at the base of the building. To your right is Lot B. We'd also like to include this in our proposal. And this is a single story, 50,000 square foot retail building. We think this could be a singular retail tenant, or it could be a multitude of smaller retail. But what we wanted to avoid is to introduce another warehouse sort of tenant or program element that would perhaps bring in semis and other large trucks parked in front of the building. We really want the site to be integrated in the community and activated by the public. Next. One of our primary goals was preserving history and preserving the building. So we took the approach that we would preserve the building 360 degrees all the way around. We had looked at previous versions where we excised large portion of the massing, but we decided to do the design from within, from inside out. So we would carve portions of the buildings from inside rather than excising large portions of the facade. We really want to keep the architectural detailing. Next. So this has been our approach, preserving the facades, but introducing new program elements on the roof. And that could be in the form of pavilions. And we also wanted to maintain the main entrance as a functional main entrance on Pershing Road. Next. One of the things we were struck by when we visited the site were the amazing views. So we really wanted to capture that and give that opportunity to see these views to the community, as well as the people that would be residing in this particular project. Next. So our one of the main features of our design is this beautiful green roof. It's very sizable and it would host a series of program elements that would benefit the community, that would be educational. Next. So our approach is holistic, is eco-friendly, but also community-based. And as I mentioned, it could be educational programs that could be in the form of urban farming, food education, that could be dance classes, could be educational programs that occur in some of these pavilions or on the roof. We also would have power generation on the roof, solar panels. We'd look at reducing the energy consumption of the building, as well as harvesting as much of the, whether it's rainwater or solar energy to produce energy. Also, we'd have a lot of community-based programs that occur on the roof and make this project really bike-friendly. We'd offer storage and a half-mile running track and bike track on the roof. Next. So we were struck by the sheer size of this roof, and I'm going to go pretty quick because I don't think there's too much time, but this roof is 100,000 square feet. Next. And we wanted to compare the sheer scale of this roof to something that was nearby, a nearby park. And we know that McKinley Park is the staple of McKinley Park, but we wanted to compare to something equitable to what this is. But if we look at Davis Square Park, and maybe some of you have been by it, we're looking at a park that's about 8 acres, and that hosts 2 baseball fields, a soccer field, a plethora of community-based programs. We compare that to the size of our roof at Pershing Road, 1769, and the other 2 roofs of the adjacent buildings were at 7 acres. That's a huge amount of area. Next. So our design approach was this green roof archipelago. We feel like this project could be the catalyst to inform the next 2 buildings that are over there, and it becomes a 7-acre park. It's almost like another version of the 606 or a trail around the city. So we feel like this could be a very exciting thing for the community, and we want it to be publicly accessible. Next. Again, these amazing views, community-oriented spaces. Next. And this half-mile running track, you can kind of picture yourself, taking a walk or being part of the community-based programs that are in these pavilions. Next. So in summary, we tried to introduce a lot of the topics that the community was interested in, and we've had a couple of conversations with the community. And there's a big question mark at the end of this list. And we feel like this is just the beginning, and it's going to be our approach to this project is really community-based, but family affordable units, publicly accessible spaces, educational programs on the rooftop, job creation. During construction, we project that we probably reach 350 jobs that we create for that alone. We feel that there's jobs going to be created in our retail spaces and also on the rooftop with these flexible community-based programs. Next. So we open up for Q&A at the end, but we're very excited and we thank you very much for the opportunity to present today.
Great, thank you very much. So first, I know I saw a hand raised, but first I want to go to one of the questions in the Q&A from Jessica Fong. She asks, is community engagement expected or part of the contract for the final selected developer? And I would just say that continued community engagement first is an expectation of the Department of Planning and Development. But any of these proposals will have to go through a required plan development process, which requires a community engagement. And so that will be a requirement of whichever proposal is ultimately selected. So how do we get to the raised hands? So we have, first is the MPDC. I'll go ahead and allow you to talk.
Hi, Nolan. This is Kate from MPDC, McKinley Park Development Council. And my question for Gary and Patrick is about Site B. In the original release of this proposal, there was talk about a grocery store. We would love to have a grocery store there. Back of the Yards recently lost a grocery store. There was a lot of excitement about what that could be. So I was wondering, I noticed tonight you said retail. Is a grocery store still on the horizon? And if so, who might your partners be?
Well, I can tell you, we have been having a discussion with a grocery store, so that's part of the plan. It's something we'd like to do. We're very early in the process yet, so I couldn't tell you who it is yet.
All right. And is there any potential for us to have space for neighborhood vendors, like a grocery store like H Mart, for example, has all those little booths up at the front, or space for co-ops for more local folks, or even to bring our farmers market indoors for the winter, those kind of things in this space?
Yeah, I think, we're early in the process, but I think we want to do that. One of the groups that we're talking to is Freight to Plate, for example, where they do the hydroponic farming. So we'd like to have that and have as much community engagement in terms of retail farmers market as we can. So yeah, love to work on that.
All right, thank you, Kate. Elba Arandasu, you have your hand raised? You should be able to unmute now.
Thank you. Yes, good evening. This is Elba Aranda with the National Latino Education Institute, NLEI. With the vision of this design, the presenter mentioned that the vision would be to inform the two other buildings. What addresses are those that you were referencing?
Those are the two buildings to the west. I don't remember the exact addresses offhand.
It would be 1819 and 1869 West Pershing Road.
1869. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Carlson.
Hi, good evening. I'm just wanted to ask for clarification on public access to the rooftop in particular. Would this truly be open to all members of the community? For example, if someone wanted to go up for a jog or a bike, would there be any restrictions? Yeah, thank you.
Needless to say, when you have a rooftop deck, you have to have restrictions. It can't just be open-ended. We'll have insurance requirements, but our plan is to have it available to the community, probably on some sort of structured basis.
Great. Ward Miller, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
There we go. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Ward Miller with Preservation Chicago. We just wanted to ask a couple of quick questions. One is just wanted to mention that both the CMD, the Central Manufacturing District along Pershing Road, and also the East District have been one of our Chicago 7 most endangered buildings in the past. And we've seen this struggle to find a new use for these buildings, and the proposal that we just saw looks very engaging and very interesting. But we were wondering, would this development team and all the development teams talk about whether they would consider a landmark designation for this building and others in the future? Because that would be really a desired outcome. And secondly, will these buildings be restored to the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Restoration? In the past, we've seen other CMD buildings which have been stripped of their brick and their historic features, and that's sometimes without even permits. So that's really distressing. It'd be wonderful to know if the development teams would be interested in becoming a Chicago landmark to restore these buildings to the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Restoration. And then lastly, I think we're all concerned as a city about toxicity in the air, and we know we have the Matte asphalt plant nearby. I'm just wondering when that will be winding down, because we're very proud to be aligned with affordable housing groups and historic preservation and architecture groups and cultural groups. But, you know, it is terrible when you walk through McKinley Park and you smell that terrible toxicity in the air. So I just wanted to ask those 3 questions together, if you will.
If I can preempt the folks real quick and just answer the third one. So I can't speak to if or when that asphalt plant will wind down. But what I can say is, you know, any development or any developer team that is selected will be expected, if there's a housing component, to make sure that they're installing environmental systems, air filtration systems, and landscaping that helps to mitigate any impact of the existing industrial uses on the site. With that, I'll hand it over, Gary, and your team to answer Ward's landmark questions.
Regarding, we're looking for National Historic designation. The tax credits are a key part of our capital stack. So our plan is to preserve the exterior of the buildings.
Okay. Miriam Perez. I'm trying to make this work. You should be able to talk now.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I have 2 questions. The first one is, if Epstein Global, like if it, what, I know that Abraham Epstein and his 2 sons were architects for the Central Manufacturing District. So I understand, or I'm not too sure of like the relation between Global Epstein, but was there like a connection to develop here, knowing that history, or if there is any connection at all? And my second question is, with the solar that you are envisioning to have on this development, do you think about like community solar, or it possibly being an anchor to people who are living in the community? Or have you heard, or have you like, talked about like community solar and how that can benefit the people who live in the community? Or is it like solar only for the site itself?
Okay, I can answer those 2 questions. So as far as Epstein, you know, I've been at the firm for 5 years, and I've heard the stories of how the firm began with the 2 the father and then the two brothers that continued on with the firm. But we do have a history with the site because one of our original offices was actually here. I can't remember exactly if it was McKinley Park or very nearby, but yes, good point. As far as solar, we envision it to power the building. Unfortunately, to provide power for the community, you need a lot of area, and we don't think that we have enough roof area essentially to do that. I think this will be enough to serve the needs of this building and hopefully get us to a point where, we're producing a lot of power for what's needed for us. Yes.
Great, thank you. Billy Drew, you should be able to unmute yourself and talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Billy Drew. I'm a lifelong resident of McKinley Park, and I have a professional background in urban planning and policy. So I like this proposal, but my questions are really for all of the proposals coming up. For this one actually in particular, which incorporates housing, I noticed you're going to do the minimum requirement for affordable units, which is 24 units. We recently lost a proposal for a 100% affordable development just down the street on Pershing because of the matte asphalt. So I'm wondering if you would be willing to go above the minimum requirement, considering the amenities that you'll be adding. You mentioned the 606 in Logan Square. That community had to respond to that trail, which created market pressures and displacement of housing costs rising because of that. So I'm wondering if, anticipation of those types of effects, would you be willing to go above the minimum requirement, perhaps up to 50% affordable units for this, preferably family units as well, considering McKinley Park is a very family-oriented community. We want to make sure that families are able to stay in the community. And then overall, with this proposal and the other proposals, those development teams, would you be willing to enter into a community benefits agreement with the McKinley Park Development Council, or perhaps Neighbors for Environmental Justice, two community groups that have been doing a lot of work to ensure that we have a local hiring agreement for these commercial partners, so that we are sticking true to the historic nature of these buildings that provided a lot of jobs to the neighborhoods, to the people that lived in the neighborhoods surrounding the Central Manufacturing District. So I'm wondering if those are things that that this development team would consider and commit to. Thank you.
We're certainly willing to discuss it and explore what it is.
Okay, and we are at about 2 minutes left, and I'm realizing now we have a number of questions in the actual Q&A function, and still a number of people with their hands raised. So for those of you, I think we can take one more question from those who have their hands raised. For those of you that we don't get to, please type your question into the Q&A function. That will record it for us, and then we'll be able to get answers for all of these questions afterwards. So and I want you to be as brief as you can, but Alfredo Romo, if you should be able to unmute now if you want to ask your question.
Yes, thank you. This is Alfredo Romo. I am the Executive Director of Neighbors for Environmental Justice. We are the organization who has been addressing matte asphalt's situation here in McKinley Park. And so I definitely second Billy Drew's comments, and also, the many concerns from other people that have been participating in this call. I think my question is also about, if there's any strategies to target resources for ongoing community engagement. We firmly believe that, we need to emphasize that hard work and any opportunities for impact in marginalized communities lies not in the development of plan, but in its implementation. So we're hoping that, the residents will feel more confident about the process if it results in tangible outcomes, along with the resources and political will to implement the plan effectively. So I think that that's really where I'm trying to understand if there's any ongoing strategies, whether it is from DPD and the developers of these proposals, and if y'all have anything with regards to any strategies, can you speak to that?
Thank you. Gary?
There is not a strategy with DPD right now. We're really just at the formative process here. We have a proposal. We're certainly more than willing to engage with any of the communities. We already have met with one of the neighborhood groups. We have a great track record of our project in Humboldt Park, working with the community and Alderman Mitz. And so I think that we would, be certainly willing to replicate that here.
Yeah, we're not going to insulate ourselves during the design process. We're going to make this community-based process.
Great, thank you. And so with that, we are at time. I am not surprised that there are a lot more questions than we were able to answer. For the 5 folks who have their hands raised, we're going to lower your hands. Please ask your question in the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we get answers for you on those. Before we move on to the next one, though, so there's a number of questions in the Q&A, and again, we will make sure that we get as many of these answered as possible after this webinar. But there's one question that came up pretty consistently, and Gary and Patrick, if you can just give a quick answer to it. Will the public have access to the roof amenities that you're proposing?
I think as we answered that before, we certainly plan on making it available to the community. There will be restrictions because of insurance and everything else. So I don't think it will be an unfettered right to the deck, but we'll certainly work with the community and make sure that we have times and availabilities and coordinated events.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I think in the interest of time, we will need to move on to the next proposal, which is Outpost Studios. Are you guys ready to present? And if you're talking, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry about that, Nolan.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for being here with us this evening. My name is Joey Cacciatore, and before I begin, I'd like to give a special thank you to the City of Chicago for this terrific opportunity. I'm a 4th-generation real estate developer, Joseph Cacciatore and Company, the oldest real estate brokerage in Chicago. I have significant experience bringing old structures back to life. The one I'm most proud of is Lacuna Lofts, a thriving entrepreneurial hub located in Hillside. On behalf of my team and I, we are excited and proud to present our plan for the future of 1769 West Pershing Road, which we refer to as Quartermaster Outpost Studios. It's with great pleasure to introduce my team members, each being an equally important part of our revitalization plan. To my left, please meet Mr. Ted Riley, the founder and executive director of the Chicago Media Angels, whose mission it is to organize and accelerate media investing in Chicago. Oh, sorry. Can you go to the next slide, Nolan? Got all of us on there. There it is. Thank you. Over the last 10 years, Ted has financed more than 50 local and independent films in Chicago. It's this proven track record of success that sets us apart. Ted received a degree in finance from the University of Notre Dame. Sitting next to Ted, please meet Don Crowley, also known as Don Steve. Don is an entrepreneur born and raised on the south side of Chicago and is a respected name within the world of music and professional basketball. Don has been involved with a number of world-class organizations throughout his career, including Jordan Brand, Wilson Sporting Goods, Mitchell & Ness, General Motors, and more. Don is currently the design advisor and creative strategist for the Chicago Bulls. Don continued his success by launching his own luxury sportswear brand, Just Don. Sorry, we've got some sirens going by. Just a second. Next up, sitting on the other end of the table is Fei Wang. Fei was born in China, is the son of Chinese immigrants who settled in Bridgeport. He is currently the Senior Vice President at Morgan Stanley. He has over 2 decades of diverse financial services experience and holds an MBA in finance from the University of Chicago School of Business. Last but not least, please meet Matthew Walsh from the Walsh Group, sitting to my right. Matthew represents the 4th generation of one of the country's most historic and successful companies. Founded in 1898, the Walsh Group has a proven reputation in delivering the highest quality building projects that range from a wide variety of office, retail, residential, and mixed-use development. Our team has the skill sets necessary to develop a successful project all on its own. We have a diverse background in film production, design, manufacturing, branding, finance, construction, and development. We have the track record of building communities, brands, and businesses right here in Chicago. Next slide, please. Our vision for Outpost Studios is a globally recognized, all-inclusive, creative campus that forever generates opportunities by encouraging collaboration amongst all the amazing talents here in Chicago. Next slide. Next. Next up to talk to you about our plan is Ted Riley.
Hello, I'm Ted Riley, the founder and executive director of the Chicago Media Angels. My company was founded in 2015 and is operated on the largest studio stage backlot in Chicago, CineSpace, ever since. Our company was formed with a distinct mission of creating a self-sustaining ecosystem for content creators and storytellers right here in Chicago. In 2015, working at CineSpace, 3 of the 4 network television shows currently being shot or shot at the time in Chicago were canceled. This abrupt loss of revenue at the CineSpace lot and at the small editing studio I was working at inspired the mission to create a self-sustaining ecosystem where we could develop, finance, produce, and distribute content right here in Chicago without relying on resources from out of the state. To date, my company has organized a group of savvy media angels. We've raised an equity fund and a debt fund, and in the last 12 months, we've fully financed over $30 million of production in the state of Illinois. Those productions have created thousands of jobs, and our mission is to keep that talented workforce here in the state and in the city. Could we go to the next slide, please? I was thrilled at the opportunity to partner with these great partners, Quartermaster Outpost Studios. As the industry continues to grow in Chicago, the need for specific infrastructure designed, tailored, needed to our industry is massive. These plans provide all of the infrastructure space we need beyond just large shooting stages, but also the workspace for creatives to develop content, all of the ancillary services that support those film productions, and then on to distribution. Big part of this project will be job creation. Each of these film productions employs hundreds of individuals, and we need to continue to grow that labor workforce. And we think there's a huge opportunity, to address Billy's earlier comment, to partner with the community to create job training to bring local people as well in the McKinley Park neighborhood, as well as throughout the city, into this industry and provide ongoing work. We're thrilled to have partnered with Joey and Walsh to build the building. And I think Don, who will speak next about local partnerships for new media, is a huge, important part of our project. Don?
I'm Don C. I'm an entrepreneur and designer, born and raised, as mentioned, on the south side of Chicago. I want to uphold my commitment to the city of Chicago and the creative community that I've been a part of for 20 plus years to make sure that my partners and all of the people that I work with are held accountable to support the Chicago community. Our creative people in the city, we need a space like Outpost Studios. This is something that we've been begging for, to be able to have a space where we can build and be a part of this creative community that we feel like so many talented people come from the city, but aren't getting the opportunities of all the work that's generated by this production that we see. Our plan is to facilitate. On top of this facility being the huge movie studios, we think, as Ted mentioned, all the complementary businesses that it can support, such as costume designer, set construction, music production, wardrobe and fashion design, over to live event space, cleaning services, hospitality, craft services, retail space. These are things that we want to include the community in, and also have training courses so people can also gain those assets that are needed to make these businesses successful. So I think from a standpoint of community building, we do want to make the commitment to the local community that we're going to stand true to making sure that the community is proud of this facility and plays a part in the role of all the success that comes from it. And I think speak about how we can get this done further.
For the jobs part. So Nolan, I'm going to ask you to click over a couple slides. So this is the floor plan. So we'll click over. This is some of the inspiration photos that Ted and Don were talking about for the creatives, for the movie studio, the sound stages, the manufacturers for costume design, and next, Nolan, same thing here. Okay, one more. All right, jobs. So one of the most exciting parts for us is this particular project, the jobs that Don and Ted talked about that we can bring to this particular project. Not just construction jobs can come and go, but sustainable jobs for the community. These are not, if you build, they'll come. They're at the doorstep. There's demand. We have creatives. We have custom designers. We have label designers that need spaces like this, in addition to the movie studio and the sound stages, which Ted talked about. And we've consulted with the Illinois Film Office. I think conservatively, we think we can deliver 1,000 jobs just for the movie production for this particular facility. And also somebody kind of talked about earlier, just the retail aspect of it. I think somebody mentioned H-Mart, all the food stalls. And as part of our project, we also have a food hall, which is very similar to what that H-Mart, which one I personally love. And all of that creates jobs. So again, I think in totality, I think we have 1,000 full-time jobs that's sustainable in this project alone. Next page. And for the boring piece on the financing side, given the demand for the space, I think this project is extremely financeable. We've already talked to several lenders through our investment bank that we engaged, and we have preliminary term sheets for $50 million in financing. The total project cost is roughly about $110 million. Half of that will come from debt financing, half of that will come from incentives, and obviously also equity from the folks that sit in front of you. And next, I'll just turn it over to Matt Walsh to kind of summarize the project.
Thank you, Fee. In the top left-hand corner, I'm going to cover our team highlights, our team professional and technical competence, and why our team. In the top left-hand corner is Lacuna Lofts. Lacuna Lofts is our creative vision for this proposal. It's a property Cacciatore Capital has owned and managed for 40 years. It's the home of several creative companies. Very successful building. This development strategy is very similar. Our team's secret is Chicago Media Angels. As you've heard, Chicago Media Angels is a film business and has been in financing films the last 8 years. They already have a customer base that, if we're awarded, would fill this building. As everyone knows, in the enormous real estate development challenge today is the interest rate. For many, it's put their business on pause. Cacciatore Capital has made the equity commitment to push this project forward. No easy task in today's market. 3 of our teammates work for companies that have been in the Chicagoland market over 100 years each. Down in the bottom left-hand corner, 2 projects Walsh Construction has just finished the renovation project, the Oakville County Hospital, and the Tribune Building. Don, brand manager for the Chicago Bulls, knows the creative industry in Chicago. Has, like we mentioned before, has that significant music, fashion, art experience, will be instrumental with connecting with the Chicago creative community that he already knows. Most importantly, as mentioned before, our team has all the players here to build this project successfully, all right here, ready to go. We thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great. And I think we're at time. I don't know, did you have another slide or was this it?
This is it. That was
Okay,
it.
great. Okay, so we have 2 hands raised. Sorry, Liz Gray, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, this is Liz Gray, and I have, thank you for the proposal. I sort of have a question around this proposal and how y'all plan to be in relationship to the community surrounding it. So one, I appreciate you breaking down sort of what some of the jobs are and what you sort of anticipate. I'm curious about what your sort of estimate is about how many of those jobs would be available to folks right in the surrounding communities. Would you be willing to, entertain a community benefits agreement that could spell that out? And then the second piece around sort of relationship to community is about sort of access to the area there. I saw in your little mock-up, you had a little entry gate posted there. And so to me, that sort of read as this is a space, like this is going to be our own little kind of sort of center here. And, how much is sort of the community surrounding it going to have access to that area, be sort of in relationship with programming there, any of that? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, if I could take a answering the latter question. The first question I'll ask Ted to respond to, but thanks for the question, Liz. Nolan, do you mind going back a few slides?
Sure.
The mock-up that is referred to. Yeah, that one there. So what you're not able to see is the north elevation of the main building, which would be the entrance to a food hall. So that would most definitely be open to the public and to the community and so on and so forth. And then where you see that's highlighted in red that reads plaza would be outdoor seating, more space for the folks that are attending the food hall, and also all the neighbors are welcome. The gate that you see, the entry gate, there are pieces of equipment that are coming in and out of any production lot. So there has to be an ingress, egress, and that's where we identified that. And then for the job and the community question, if you don't mind going forward a few slides, Nolan. Thank you. Right, yeah, Ted can talk about these.
Yeah, and so Liz, I'd say that the reality of film production is we're constantly completing and finishing new projects, and we're constantly growing. Every film project that we do, independent film will employ at least 250 people. A lot of those roles are entry-level roles, and frankly, as the industry in Illinois has grown tenfold in the last decade, there's massive demand for more people who can do these jobs. There's a wide variety of things. There's everything from, what you might think of artistic, being a cameraman or being an actor, but there's also carpenter jobs and electrician jobs and plumber jobs. So there's a wide variety of opportunities. It would be crucial to our success of our endeavor to continue to train new people to get them involved in this. And so really the vision for this is a community hub. I think that idea of that first floor as an open food court is a place where we could have all kinds of collaboration between very seasoned and experienced executive producers, as well as the youngest PA or intern who might be in our various job training programs or working on their first job on a set. And we would absolutely engage any community organization to formalize those agreements to make sure that that the local community gets those job opportunities and training opportunities.
Nolan, if you could go back one slide, please.
Sure. We need to get to some other questions too, though. Do you have anything to say about this particular slide or?
No, one more, please.
Wait.
Yeah, backwards. To answer Liz's question, we actually tried to lay out all the floors. It's on one of the slides that Nolan will go back to. And on that first floor, we had about 45,000 square feet of kind of a multi-purpose space. So it was going to range from, food court during the day right there. See the big top left in the maroon color? That was going to be our flex space. So it's going to be food court, during the day. And it could also be, community events during the evenings and weekends as well. So this was our attempt to kind of lay out the entire building.
Great. Thank you. MPDC.
Hi, Nolan. This is Kate. So for the team, my question for you, or the question from our group is, are you actually doing any of the hiring and running this industry here, or are you just making space for other vendors to come in and you believe that they will hire X number of people?
Today, the Chicago Media Angels is currently producing 17 films, and I'm the executive producer on each of those films, employing lots of people. So that's what my day job is when I'm not a partner in Quartermaster Studios.
Thank you. I want to make sure some new folks get a chance to ask questions. Jackie Marquez, you should be able to talk now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just want to make a comment and also ask a question. So my family and I own a couple of properties and that we live in just blocks from this area. And the first thing I'm noticing the difference between these two proposals is the difference in how you would be inviting the communities to access the space. With the first proposal, I think, at least there's built-in green space for the community to enjoy. The second proposal sounds like you're inviting us into the space to give you our money. So I just want to highlight that. So if there's an opportunity for your team to kind of revisit that sort of relationship and invitation to the community around the area, I hope you do, because I appreciate that there'll be a food hall, but it sounds like that there are two very different invitations here. The second thing is, for both proposals, parking is already very tight in the area. And my big concern is, are you building parking into the building, underneath the buildings? Like, how do you plan to manage that so that the community is not impacted by losing our spaces? Thank you.
Thank you. Team?
Yeah, our plan includes parking. We have parking in the building. I think we had 100 spots indoor, roughly 250 surface parking spots. And we would have to either acquire more property to the south or figure out a way to bus in some of the other that would be working here. So I hope that answers your question on parking.
Thank you. Jorge Vega, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Wonderful. So, my question is in regards to the job creation in the community. We all know that the movie industry has done a poor job at integrating other minorities within the movie industry. So the question is what efforts will you place on reaching out to these minorities and inviting them to learn and to train them to be a part of this movie industry or film industry in general?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jorge. And I think this is a super important point. I think the state of Illinois has actually done a spectacular job in the Illinois Film Production Service Tax Credit, which is crucial to my business's model and funding of every film that we make. the state actually requires us to have a diversity plan and track all diversity hires on every single one of those films. So across my film's portfolio, over 50% of our hires have historically been of minority backgrounds, and that's tracked by the state as a mandate. So it's important to us both for the reality of, I think it makes better content if you invite more voices to be a part of it, but also, frankly, the state and our financing requires us to address that issue. So I think the state of Illinois should be very proud of aggressively addressing this issue, which has been a major problem in the film industry at large for some time.
Thank you. I think we can take one more question in the time that we have, and then we'll have to move on to the last presentation. Madison Saavedra, would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. My name is Madison, and I'm a reporter for Black Club Chicago, reporting on this meeting just for transparency's sake. There was an earlier slide for this proposal that mentioned something about 40 apartments. I was wondering if you could go back to that and clarify if this proposal for the site includes building apartments.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thanks for the question, Madison. It does. Yeah, lots of the film production here in Illinois, they, like here, for example, CineSpace, if there are an actor or actress that's making a film there on the lot, and they obviously can't live anywhere nearby or stay anywhere nearby, and then they're required to have a Teamster drive them to the hotel and back to the lot. So we thought a good use of the roof was to implement some sort of residential. So the plan currently shows 40 mixed rate apartments.
Great.
Oh, is there another part of the question that I missed? Okay, yeah, and we plan to comply with the city's affordable policy for the ARO designation.
Great. Thank you. I think in the interest of time, we need to move on to the last proposal. Those of you who still have your hands raised, if your question wasn't answered, please type it into the Q&A. Again, I think we're getting a lot more questions than I even anticipated. So we'll be sure to distribute all of these questions to the development teams to get answers back to folks within the next week or so. Ward, I do want to just touch on one thing because I know you're asking a lot about landmarking. And again, the department will issue kind of an official statement based on the RFP. But in terms of landmarking, we do expect all three proposals, or we expect the winning proposal to explore landmark status, work with the city's landmark department, make sure that the facades that are visible from the street are restored, and make sure that any of the kind of structural changes that might be proposed for the building are ones that the city is able to support. So we'll get a more kind of official word out to you on that, but I hope that answers some of the questions that you've been posing. With that, I'd like to invite Pershing Road Studios to present their proposal.
Great, thank you, everyone. My name is Daniel Hawley. I'm with LG Development Group. Appreciate everyone coming out to participate in this community meeting. I think there was 200 participants, which is not surprising, but it shows how strong this community is. So I appreciate you taking the time and appreciate TPD for hosting. Nolan, if you can flip the slide. Great. So again, I'm Daniel Hawley with LG Group. I'm one of the partners, and we are co-leading this development with KMW Communities with Bill Williams. So we're going to co-lead development and also be the co-general contractors on the project. We have an exciting project to present to you. This is also a studio space. So as a follow-up to the previous proposal, we have a really talented team. We're excited to bring a really exciting, innovative industry to the space that's obviously been proven out here in the city of Chicago with the success of CineSpace, and we think that there's a lot of growth here. So I'd like to introduce the team, the architecture firm SCB, which has an amazing track record here in Chicago. Some just really iconic projects, most recently the Chicago Tribune redevelopment. JLL is advising us on leasing and debt and equity. They're a global firm. They have a reach nationally specific to the studio space. And so we're very glad to have them on board. We mentioned KMW and LG, and then we're also being advised on the zoning front by Rolando Acosta, who's principal of Acosta Esger. And then a really important piece here, obviously, is that we have Cinelease Studios attached to the project. So Cinelease is one of the leaders in the nation in operating and managing studio spaces. And so real quick, here today, you have myself and Bill Williams, Sherry Park representing Cinelease, Tom Kirschbaum with JLL, and Nicholas Pryor with SCB. As we can move on. You can move on to the next one. Yep. Again, so we're really excited to bring this opportunity here and present it to you folks. The idea here is to really create a space here within the community that has a really solid impact with the neighborhood and the surrounding communities. And there's really a few things that we want to touch on. One is the nucleus of the development is the sound stages. And so our thought process here is that we're going to be able to bring a lot of permanent jobs to the area. We're going to be able to generate a lot of vibrancy to this specific location. And it's not just jobs for the city in general. You know, the focus would be on jobs in the immediate community. There's apprenticeships that could be available. The jobs run the gamut from all different education levels, and you know, there's advancement potential here as well. And so we're really excited about what we can do here. And the other thing to focus on is the community amenity space, and that's really just a blank canvas on Pershing Road. It's about 13,000 square feet. We would engage with the community on how to activate that space, and you know, we're really excited about that. It could be some type of co-op space. We could look for some type of brochure, even just community event space. So we want to invite the community into the building, into the project, and this will be. SCB could talk about it a little bit more, but we will be renovating the existing building, as Nolan just touched on. That's part of the requirement, but we will be trying to maintain as much of the historic building as we can and preserve it and tap into federal and state historic housing tax credits. In addition to the studio space, we'll have a carpentry shop on site. We'll have some flex office back of house space. Next slide. So at this point, I'll let Nicholas Pryor at SCB take over, and he can talk through some of the specifics.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present to everyone. I think I'm really excited to talk about how we've kind of fit this puzzle together. As Daniel talked about, there's a lot of pieces here, and I think we've done it in such a way that balances the development potential of the site while respecting the history of the building and creating, I think, some great community benefits. So you can see on the slide, we start with demolishing a portion of the historic building while maintaining the facade, everything that's visible along Pershing Road and then along the east facade as well. And then demolishing the 1717 building as well to really free up the site for the next slide, where we talk about the sound stages. This is really kind of the bread and butter of what we're talking about here. And so as you can see in the lower right-hand corner, these are big open spaces, but don't think of these like warehouses. These are very kind of tech-infused, flexible spaces that accommodate everything we see on TV, kind of all of the action, all of the dance numbers, all the things happen in these stages, and they really have to be really almost boxes within a box. And the reason I bring that up is because it creates this nice dynamic in the sense that they don't want any sound coming in to the sound stages, and which means that no sound gets out either, which creates that nice relationship with the community. So next slide. And because we are in Chicago, we also thought about the logistics of getting all of the things into and out of these sound stages. And so we created these airlocks between the sound stages. Those are those light blue boxes you see there. And again, what's good about these is that they are internal to the site. And so the idea is that trucks, people, equipment can move in and out of these sound stages while being protected, but also internal to the site and not impact the community at all. So next slide. The topic of parking came up in the last presentation. You can see here, we've focused a lot of our parking towards the back of the site. This is where we see all of the trucks and trailers being parked more toward the back of the site, out of view, trying to minimize the impact on the neighborhood, as well as we do have a little bit of internal parking to the building. There's a lot of space, and these are kind of really well-built buildings that we think can be modified into parking spaces. So, next slide. And then goes along with the sound stages are all of the back of house spaces. So everyone talks about the jobs, the costume makers, the set designers, the sound engineers. All of that's going to happen in the yellow space that we're showing here. We like it because it's nice and centrally located to the site, and again gives great access for all of the stuff, all the things that have to happen on site to facilitate a production. So, but I also wanted to call out the red space, the community amenity space that Daniel mentioned, that blank slate. You can see in the lower right-hand corner this question: what uses are preferred and appropriate for the neighborhood? We really want to engage in that conversation with you if we're so lucky to be selected. This is a great opportunity for that kind of relationship with the community. So. Next slide. And then lastly, above the back of house space, we do have a certain amount of office / flex space. Really, this is kind of more flex space. It can be outside offices that just need extra space, from the neighborhood, from the community, or this could be an expansion of the existing sound production spaces. We're really kind of leave that open for flexibility in the future. So next slide. So this brings us back around to the Pershing Road elevation. You can see the historic building on the right, and what's shown here is all of this street front activation that we think there's a possibility for. So on the left-hand side, we've pushed the sound stages back to create this nice plaza space that could be activated throughout the year with various public art opportunities. There's a great wall for murals that could happen there, as well as a lot of landscaping opportunities. And then on the right-hand side, that community amenity space that we're talking about, that red box, that's where that goes and creates that nice relationship with the community.
And Nicholas, you guys have about a minute or two, like a minute left.
Okay, then I'm going to hand off to Sherry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, everyone. Great to be participating on this today. So just a bit of history about Cinelli Studios. We are owned by parent company Herc. So that is the umbrella that we kind of roll up under. And we've got a grip and lighting division, as well as the studio piece with over 45 years of experience in the industry. Footprints in every major production hub, and we currently own and or operate about 1.2 million square feet of stages. And in the 45 years, we've definitely seen a lot of changes in the entertainment industry, but one thing that has not changed is the appetite for content creation. We're looking at approximately just an exponential growth with approximately 79% over the last couple years. So no signs of things slowing down. And as these studios and platforms, race to create content, there's an increasingly high demand for sound stages more than ever, with Chicago obviously being one of the key locations. And there are a couple reasons why studios can go outside of kind of the infrastructure that they might have. For example, like Disney here in LA, you're looking at storyline, for example, so different filming locations that Chicago may be, key identifying for, and just, becoming increasingly complicated and more costly, right, for them to film their own projects at their studio lots. So the bottom line, all of this equals there's just not enough sound stages. So they're, looking for film-friendly cities like Chicago, where they will get, the best tax incentives, in addition to the infrastructure that can support all of these productions. So Nolan, next slide, please, if you don't mind.
And I'm so sorry, but if you have like one or two more things to note, but we really have to get to Q&A here.
Yeah,
Great.
so Sherry, maybe can we go to the next slide real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, I think I think this is probably going to be an important one.
So one of the things that we obviously want to highlight here is not just, the employment opportunities that the productions themselves will bring, but we're looking at typically for the size and scope of Pershing Road, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 jobs annually. That does not include any ancillary business opportunities. I think, the film industry is pretty unique in that it touches almost every job market, every business type. So hospitality, hotels, food and beverage, card services, transportation, and all of this, will not only help raise awareness around our core business, but one of our, Cinelli Studios priorities is to give back to the community that supports us. So we have a lot of diversity and integration initiatives, sponsorships around like women in film. We support film students across the country, nonprofit organizations like Diaspora, which is just as an example, an entertainment training, for in Africa to help the entertainment industry happening there. So all of these things will obviously help create an economic boost within the community, and Cinelli is very committed to helping see this be a very successful development, not only for the industry, but for it to make a positive impact for the city as well. So we'll do whatever we can to make that happen with our partners.
Great, thank you. And I think I have to stop you guys there. Let's go on to some of the questions. Sean Ursini, you should be able to talk now.
Hi, thank you. Right off the bat, demolishing maybe 400,000 square feet of the building is kind of a non-starter from where I'm coming from, especially when the other proposals are doing a much better job at preserving the building, one of which preserves the floor plates in their entirety. I just want to ask the project team, is the column grid your biggest hindrance to preserving the rest of the building there? Because reinforced concrete is really good in its acoustical properties with floor plates that thick especially, and that should be okay for sound stages, and maybe have to do some internal modifications and cut through some floors. But demolishing like 70% of that building, I think, is kind of laughable when we're looking at preserving the history of the corridor here, especially since it started as a C40 project, and demolishing that much of a building and throwing out that embodied energy is really the least green thing we can do. And then secondly, there was discrepancy in the renderings. The axonometric rendering showed the connecting bridge in place to the buildings to the west, but your other stacking diagrams showing building function showed that bridge removed. So can you confirm if that bridge is going to stay or go in your proposal? Because those connecting bridges really are an integral part of the building's history.
Thank you, Sean. I will actually jump in and answer your second question. The city is not entertaining proposals that demolish the bridges, and I don't think this proposal actually is contemplating that, because that was explicitly outlined in the RFP. But I'll let you go ahead and answer his other question.
Yeah, I can jump in, Nolan. I appreciate it. And our intent was not to demolish the bridge. We completely agree with you that it's an integral part to the history of the building. And I can appreciate the concern about demolishing a large portion of the building. Our problem with the sound stages is both the column grid and the ceiling height, as well as kind of the accessibility of the getting into and out of those sound stages. And so we did the best we could in terms of preserving what we thought was the best historical character of the building, especially from the public perspective. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Malik, you should be able to unmute now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question just regarding the parking situation, because it looked like in the rendering that the structured spaces that are being set aside are potentially on the first floor of the northern elevation. I'd love to understand if the ground level along Pershing Road, is that being converted to a parking lot, or is that still being set aside for other, maybe more community-facing development?
Yeah, I'll jump in again. That was my rendering. The intent is that those parking spaces, there would be a ramp that would go up to the second and third floor of parking, preserving the first floor for that community amenity space. Yeah, I would agree with anyone that the first floor along Pershing Road should not be parking in any way, shape, or form. It should be reserved for the community.
Thank you. Mike Naughton, you should be able to unmute now.
Yeah, I just had a question. I saw some of the semi trucks and trailers and stuff on your renderings, and I'm kind of wondering how you see this project impacting the freight, given that there's already tons and tons of freight that travels along Pershing and up Ashland and sometimes into the neighborhood awkwardly. So you could just speak to that. If you have any data or projections or anything like that, that'd be helpful.
I think I can respond to that. Tom Kirschbaum from JLL. Those things that look like semis are generally the trailers for exterior shots, and their departure and arrival is pretty ad hoc. So it's not like things are going to be added to in any significant way the current traffic levels along Pershing and Ashland. It's for night shots, they may be going out at 4 p.m. and then coming back later in the evening. For day shots, it's an early outbound and then an earlier return. But these aren't semis with diesel engines running all the time. It's basically trailers for going offsite.
Great, thank you. Dominic Merzina, you should be able to talk now. Dominic, are you there?
Oh, you're on mute, Dominic.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Hey there, I'm third generation McKinley Park since 1940. My family's lived here for a very long time. I still live in the neighborhood, very much invested in the neighborhood. And I see what is already utilized along Pershing Avenue. I'm not sure if it's stage equipment or whatnot, but from what I see, it's already undesirables. I haven't noticed. I don't think any of the stage and movie stuff will add value to the neighborhood. It's people that technically will not have long-term jobs. They're more minimum wage, and it's people who don't really live in the neighborhood that don't really invest in it. When you come down to workers, I think more residential and apartment buildings will be a lot more beneficial considering what I already see over there now. I'm just wondering if that's more the proposal that we could try to lean towards, is the residential. And I already know that the neighborhood is not in need of lower income or affordable housing. The McKinley Park already is not even at the higher end of Chicago rent. So, I mean, like I said, third generation, we love the neighborhood. We're looking for more people to move into the neighborhood.
Okay.
If I could respond to that, our major motivation on this was job creation, and these are really well-paying jobs. And it also provides job opportunities for people that have maybe in the past not had access to jobs. Another thing I would point out is the spin-off benefits of what a studio does are pretty profound and pretty localized. When we were working on behalf of the buyers of Cinespace, Alex Pizios was telling us he orders 1,000 burritos a week from surrounding restaurants, 1,000 pizzas a week from surrounding restaurants. It's an extraordinary generator of opportunity in the immediate area surrounding. So our thought on this is the benefit goes well beyond the building onto places like 35th Street and Archer Avenue, where you've got a lot of small businesses that would benefit directly from this. We're not, so for better or worse, we're proposing something that generates a lot of well-paying jobs.
Great. Thank you. Jacob Berenson, I accidentally lowered your hand, but you were next in line. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi. Frankly, I find it kind of shocking that a proposal that proposes to tear out at least 50% of the original building managed to make the top 3. And I find it especially ironic when you talk about like the historic character of the building or the good qualities of the building. But anyway, assuming that like, say the city comes back and tells you, no, you can't tear out that much of the building, you have to leave it in place. What else would you use it for?
Thank you.
Well, we can adapt to anything. One of the challenges for these buildings has been the depth of those floor plates, and therefore the difficulty to find office uses where you're several hundred feet from a window line.
Yeah.
And frankly, we also responded to the city's conceptual drawings that contemplated the possibility of carving off the back and viewed that as a signal that the stuff facing the rail yard was not that critical from a historic standpoint. People can disagree, but we didn't do it out of any objectionable motivations. We're trying to max out the job creation for the McKinley Park neighborhood.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, and I think after this we'll have time for maybe one more question because we are over time already. But I will say that yes, the RFP did contemplate. I think the city recognizes that this building has a very large floor plate, and so any type of proposal may need to punch holes into the middle of the building to get light down into the interior, may need to remove a portion of the back. I think what was really critical to the city is that those the facades that you see from the street, that people actually can see when they're passing by, that those be restored and preserved. And so that was our main priority. That being said, as I mentioned earlier, any proposal that contemplates structural changes to the building would need to work with the city's landmarks department to make sure that what they're proposing is something that the city is able to support. With that, I want to get one more question in just to give folks kind of equal time on each of these proposals. Eladio Montenegro, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, yes, it's actually Erica. I'm joining from my husband's computer.
Hi, Erica.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I actually really, as I'm sitting here on this screen, I really appreciate the emphasis on the community benefits from this third proposal. I really appreciate that we have this apprenticeship and internship programs, that all of the jobs are union jobs. But I did want to ask a little bit of clarification. When it comes to the apprenticeship and internship programs, do you mean that you partner with them, or that you would be committed to providing apprenticeship and internship programs within this space so that our community can access that and then ultimately benefit economically through these really well-paid union construction, production, art jobs that are available? And then before you even answered that question, I just wanted to comment that I do think that the most important part of preservation is what the community can see. It's what adds to the character. And if we have to make some modifications to a building in order for it to be usable, I understand that. But yeah, the question about the apprenticeship, if you could address that, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, our intention is to provide, apprenticeship opportunities on site, but we know that gets done cooperatively with surrounding high schools and with the unions that are going to be training those people, hands-on experience. So our desire is to work with the community to give the most opportunities to people that live in McKinley Park. Does that answer your question?
I've already muted her, but I think that answers it. Thank you. So we are at time, but I have just a few more slides I want to take folks through and how you can continue to engage in this process. John, I see your hand raised. If you can add your question to the Q&A. Sorry, a lot of content we didn't get to. So next steps. Again, we are in this evaluation process, and so there is still an opportunity for the community to provide their input. This evening, we'll be launching, and Roberto, if you can text me the URLs, I'll put them in the chat. We'll be launching a community scorecard available in English, Spanish, and Mandarin, where you can provide your thoughts and input on the 3 proposals that you saw here tonight. What did you like? What you didn't like? What's important to you? The scorecard will be open for 2 weeks. Although, given the number of questions that are unanswered in the Q&A, I think what we might want to do is extend the survey period an additional week. So we'll give these 3 development teams 1 week to get answers back to us on these Q&As or these questions that we weren't able to answer tonight. We'll provide those responses out to the community, and then we'll have 2 weeks for you to fill out this survey. This provides an opportunity for you to provide input, additional input. The responses will be incorporated into the final evaluation committee meeting that we're hoping to have somewhere around the end of this month. And then additionally, as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 community representatives included in the evaluation committee as well. Here are the URLs for those 3 community surveys. Roberto, can you send them to me in the chat, the webinar chat? These are the URLs here. I'll leave them up for a minute so you can write them down, but I'll also hopefully be able to put them in the chat so you can just click on them directly. Additionally, we'll send out a follow-up message to everyone who attended tonight after this meeting, so you'll have the URLs in your email. But again, the scorecard will be open for 2 weeks. The evaluation committee will meet again later this month with a final selection anticipated sometime in early April. And then at that time, as I mentioned, the selected team will still be expected to continue community engagement after they're selected and also go through kind of the formal negotiation process with the city. Once again, here are the 3 URLs, and I am going to share these to everyone in the chat. There's one in English, one in Spanish, one in Mandarin. Again, we'll also send this out to everyone who registered for the meeting this evening, and we'll also share this with community organizations and make sure that we get the message out as widely as possible. Again, the recording of this presentation will be available on the city's website within the next week, along with this PowerPoint presentation. So if we went too fast through any of the material, you can take a look back and review it on your own time. We'll also put together a list of the questions that were asked tonight and answers to those and have those published as well. So if you feel like you have enough information now and you want to fill out the survey now, you're welcome to do so. If you want to wait for about a week for us to get some additional materials published for you to review, you're welcome to do that as well. We'll extend that 2 weeks out another week to make sure. We'll make sure that there's 2 weeks from whatever point we have published all the information so that folks have enough time to review the material and to kind of make an informed decision when they fill out the survey. So With that, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us tonight. I want to thank everyone for spending a few extra minutes with us so that we could get a few extra questions answered. Apologies again to the 88 questions that came through in the question and answer function. But again, we'll make sure that we distribute those questions to the relevant team and get those answers out to you so you're able to make an informed decision when you fill out the survey. So with that, thanks everyone. Thank you to the 3 development teams again for your thoughtful proposals and for joining us tonight and being willing to present to the community. And we'll be in touch. So with that, I hope everyone has a good evening.